Hey, Anna, how are you?
We're in. Hi, good evening. Am I muted? No.
No, we can hear you.
It's a good thing I was being polite. Hi. Henry, nice to see you. It's been
Hey,
a
Harold, how are
long
you?
time.
I'm our Open Space Recreation Committee is hoping to sit in on this meeting.
Yeah,
You see Cheryl soon, and we're very curious about how the school plans might interact with our other plans for recreational spaces and things like that. So we thought we'd sit in.
Our intent is to make that, once we commence with the formalities of opening a meeting, make that the first agenda item. Good evening.
Chris, I've made you co-host as well. Christina, do you need that function as well?
Sure.
Okay, great.
That means I can record.
Okay, great. Okay. Can you just make sure you have that? You good?
Yes. Yep. I've got it now.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Chris, what's that little gold box mean on your screen?
What?
What's that little gold box on Chris's screen?
Yeah.
That's my
Oh, it's the logo.
Oh, okay. I was like, well, he said some kind of exclusivity going on. Oh, I see. It's behind you. Yep.
we
It comes
we
right
just
up
paid
over your name.
we
Hi,
paid
Sharon.
them a whole lot of money is what the deal is.
Oh.
Great. So there's a few more people just coming in, and then we'll try and start promptly in about a minute or so.
When Siobhan, when I have a quorum, I will have to call us to order.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay, so as we watch this fill in, you can make that.
I'll hand it over to you. You can do your spiel.
We'll do that. I did put a little outline together for open space when we get ready to open, just so we can kind of just open that package up. And then the members of open space, if they want to stay for the interior presentation, they can stay for going all the way through the interior. It's just up to them to decide how much time they want to commit to.
Yeah.
Another evening of running the town of Tisbury.
Yeah.
I see Jay Grande there, so he knows what I mean. I'm not sure who that was,
Don't have
but that,
Cheryl.
That was Cheryl. Cheryl, you were having some bandwidth issues. We couldn't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
a little better, yeah.
A little bit? Okay. I may not be able to say much then.
No, you just got much better. So whatever.
Oh, good. Okay. Good evening. We have four of us, so I probably need to call our meeting to order.
Yeah, so
I
I'll
don't have the.
I'm just going to give it another minute, and then I'll kind of start the meeting, hand it over to you guys to officially start your meetings, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay. What I was going to say is I'm not at home. I don't have my preamble with me. You know that. So maybe if someone open it, then I'll just call ours to order.
Okay, great.
But I can't read the code thing.
Cheryl, do you need a quorum as well?
We don't, but we have one.
Okay, great. And Harold, will you just let me know when you have yours?
Yeah, I'm looking. So
We have it.
who have I got here?
So we have on right now myself, Henry Stevenson, Jerry Hokinson, and Carolyn Wallace.
Harold, do you want to
It looks like I have myself, Peter, John, Mike, and
Rita.
Rita?
Yeah, Peter. Yeah, Harold, Peter, John, Mike, correct?
No, and Rita.
Is Rita here?
Yep,
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so we can open when you're ready. Yep.
And
Okay.
I'm sorry, just Harold, just a reminder that the PTO has some regular business that they want to do. So when we're wrapped up, just
Yeah, I'll just step through
hand
that.
it back over to
briefly.
Siobhan.
Yeah. Great. So thanks everybody for joining us. The PTO was really delighted to host the Tisbury School Building Committee along with our Open Space Committee, and just appreciate the dialogue that we're going to have here. Just the format of the meeting, we're just going to have the Tisbury Building Committee is going to do a presentation. The first presentation will be a site review that will focus on initially, and that's the main interest of the Open Space Committee's meeting with us this evening. And then we'll move on to the building itself, the review of where we're at with that to date. And then after each section, we'll take a Q&A from anybody. Feel free to post your questions in the chat, and then we'll try and get through them as best we can. And then afterwards, we'll adjourn the 2 committee meetings, and then the PTO has some small business that we'll attend to after, and this is all done. So at this point, then I think I will hand it over to Harold to open his meeting for the Tisbury School Building Committee.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Tisbury School Building Committee meeting of March 18th, if you can all believe that, to order at 6:34 p.m. Hey, Cheryl, I think this can double for Open Space Committee due to
Yes.
the ongoing efforts of the governor to prevent the spread of COVID-19. This meeting is being held remotely using the Zoom platform. A recording of this meeting and written minutes will be available on the Tisbury School Project website, tisbury-school-project-.com. Written minutes at the town website, tisburyma.gov. Correspondence may be submitted to the Tisbury School Building Committee via email at tisburyschoolproject@gmail.com. I think everyone knows the Zoom protocol, so I'm going to dispense with that. And I will move to a roll call attendance of the Tisbury School Building Committee. John Costa,
Costa here.
Sean DeBencourt,
Hello, Harold. I am here. I'm having a bit of video problem at the moment, but rest assured, I am here.
thank you very much. Peter Gerhardt,
Peter Gerhardt here.
Rita Jeffers,
Jeffers here.
thank you, Rita. Rachel Orr,
I'm here, Harold.
thank you. Reed Milne,
I'm here. Hi.
hi. Jim Rogers. And I think Jim will be joining us. He did call in for login information. Mike Watts.
Mike Watts is here, and Harold, I do need to duck out at shortly after 7. I'm on the speaker list for tonight at the MVC. So
Okay. All right. Thank you. It looks like we will still maintain a quorum, but thank you very much, Mike. I guess we should turn it over to Cheryl.
So this is Cheryl Doval, and I'd like to open the Tisbury Recreation and Open Space and Recreation Committee meeting that is joining you. When I call your name, please state whether you're here or be silent if you're not. Henry Stevenson,
Here.
Jerry Hoganson,
Wilkinson here.
plus. Okay, Carolyn, are you muted? I can see you're here, so.
Oh, no,
We're
I'm
good to
here.
go.
Carolyn Wallace here.
Okay.
You froze for a minute. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in a odd location here. I'm doing my best. Okay, thank you. And thank you for inviting us to the meeting. I think that we're all really interested in hearing the planning that you've done to learn more about it. Our committee looks at this at the school grounds as an important recreation facility in the community, and we're interested to learn more about it.
Okay. Can I introduce the professional team?
Yes, please.
Or ask them to go? I'll let them introduce themselves. Why don't we go Christina, Amanda, and then Chris.
Christina Hopper, Daedalus Projects. We're the owner's project manager.
Amanda Sawyer. I'm with Daedalus as well, owner's project manager.
And I'm Chris Blesson from Tappe Architects.
Thank you, guys. A few things that from the school building committee I'd like to outline. When we're looking at the site plan, I want everyone to understand this is in the schematic phase design. So phase 1, schematic design. Step 2, funding. Step 3, design development. So in many ways, schematic design is a placeholder, both in concept and in dollars and cents. So our ability to dive deeper into the design does come at a later date. I think if you followed the school building committee meetings, you'll know that the PTO has funds set aside that are CPC monies, which we're really happy to know are there. We certainly hope to continue to tap that resource. And we're looking for those types of funds to offset some of the expenses rather than to augment the expenses. Tappe and the OPMs have provided a very comfortable budget for the landscape plan, and that will unfold as we go through that design development phase. It is important to us as a school building committee that we've looked at this as not only a school building, but a community building. I mean, there is no doubt, first and foremost, number one, this is the primary educational facility for the town of Tisbury. But number two, that playground does see a lot of community use, and integrating that is very, very important. So we see, and hopefully the select board and everyone else sees, that growth over the design development period. And I just want to speak to that level of cooperation that we've tried to afford everyone along the way. Two important notes are the school committee and the select board are the true gatekeepers of this project. The current Tisbury School Building Committee will cease to exist sometime in June. I would imagine it will be reconstituted in another way. So as we go through this process right now, I think it's incumbent upon all of us as not so much school building committee members, but as members of the town of Tisbury, is some kind of structure is formed later of multiple representatives to work with the architects in that design development phase. So whether it's a PTO, open space, selectmen, new school building committee, subcommittee, or whatever, some entity should be formed to represent this important part in the future. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Chris to present the site plan. And then, like Siobhan said, we'll go through some question and answer and discussion periods a little bit later. Chris.
Thanks, Harold.
Thank you.
Let me get my files in order here.
That's okay. I could fill a gap if I need to. Just let me know.
No, it's good. I have it open. I just wasn't seeing it on my initial share screen here. So here we go.
While Chris is doing that, Cheryl, one of the important components of this would probably be complete streets as well. And that can be a little bit of a discussion later, but we'll let Chris roll. Okay.
Okay. So that's, I trust that everybody can hear me and also see this site plan. Yep. Got a thumbs up. Okay, good. I'm going to close my viewer of people so I can't see you all. So if there's something happening, I will not know unless you speak up and tell me. So, all right. So this is the existing site as you may know it today, sitting up on the hill there. And you can see where the school is now, and you can see the little White House over here and the existing gym here. And then the white roof is the big 1920s building. But key to note out of this image is, when you talk about site design, this image really kind of tells you a lot. It tells you that this field is well used because it's right now. And it tells you the basketball may be playing on some dirt as well. And I know that's half court, but there's a lot happening over here. And then, you can gain a lot. So we know, and then if you go dig into it a little deeper, you know that some of these elements are a little more well used and tired, as we like to say, than others. And, that's some of this play area here. And then some of the other things are newer, but still sort of aging, if you will. And so those are the conditions that we find ourselves entering into with this site design. And a couple of other things to note is you have parking here. And then on the site currently, you have a little bit of head-in parking and bus pull-off on the northern side of the site as well. So those are some of the key components that we find today. And what we really wanted to talk through today was what the site plan is for the new school. And I'll start with the site plan and then kind of back into some other things to talk through it a little bit more in detail. So this is the proposed site plan, and I'm going to start on the left side and kind of work my way around. It's sort of keynoted, so you can maybe I'll start on the right side because that's where the lower numbers are. But it's keynoted, so you can kind of follow along yourself as well. But what we tried to do, and this was multiple iterations with the building committee, and we tried to make use of all the sides of this site, and also create it in a way that helps it feel more like a cohesive park-like environment, and with the school just sitting in the middle of it. And so on the right-hand side, you have some play areas for the sort of upper grades. So these are like the more like 3 through 8 sort of age range of play. In particular, the number 2 is sort of conceived of being like maybe a rope climb play structure with some mulch and wood structures in there. And then throughout the site program, we have things like outdoor classrooms and other components where students and teachers can bring the learning outside and around the building. And I'll touch on some of those as we go, but one of them is right here, number 3. And you have the basketball court and some fitness zones, and then a larger field here for soccer. I think we're showing it as a U8 size field, which is the 75 by 120. And then we have an amphitheater and a little stage on this side of the building. The topography, if you spend much time at the site, the building kind of sits up tall on the top of this sort of elevated land mass, and then it slopes down on 2 sides of it. And so you kind of get these bowls on both sides. And so we're taking advantage of some of that topography and making elements like amphitheaters and stuff like that as we sort of develop the site plan here. Maintaining the parking over here. And one of the key components to the design is actually that the entry for the new gym is at the same level as this parking area, so that it has grade level entry. You don't have to go up, 10 or 12 steps just to get to a landing, to go up some more steps to get into the gym. And so that's a more user-friendly, universally accessible entryway for the building. Down here you see a number 6, and we wanted to make sure we incorporated school gardens and planting and things like that, just for sustainability. And then also just there's the vibe of teaching growing on the island is something we wanted to be able to maintain. And then existing loop that is there now would be maintained, probably repaved or something like that. And then maybe clean up some of the plantings and things that are inside of that, that it sort of are in front of the building there. And then on the west side of the site, we have another school garden for the lower grades, so grades 1 through 2, or K really, 1 through 2, and we have the rest of the play structures. So we have some swings over here and another play structure for the 1 to 2 grades 1 to 2 age range, and then some picnic areas. And one of the things we tried to do as well is get some nice shade trees and things around some of the seating areas, but also around the play. I have young kids, and it's really hard sometimes when you go to a playground and it's just in the baking sun. And so we tried to get plantings around these play areas so that there is some shade and play all in the same areas. And then there's some lower level pre-K and K aged structures here. And then 14 is an outdoor classroom, and then another sports lawn. And this loop here is labeled 15. We have it as, it's called the trike loop, but it's really, it's a flat surface that goes around the site and creates a walking loop or a bike loop or something like that to have play, and also give access to this last element over here, which is a rain garden, so that we can properly drain the site and get water where it needs to go instead of having it collect in one spot where you actually play. And the buses still drop off on the north side, but you can see the pathways through the site are all considered and really trying to be thoughtful about that to create, a site that's usable all the time, and even probably have some low-level park-like lighting on the site so that it's not completely dark at night, and that's some of that's negotiable. And so we presented this a while back, and we got some really good feedback, and then went back specifically on this west end of the site. And one of the things we did was went back and tried to reimagine what that could look like. And I think the big feedback we got was having another play field over here. So the landscape architects kind of went back and got that in, along with the bike or walking loop here, and another half-size basketball court, because we know that the courts are sort of well used over there, as you could tell from the site image earlier. And then they reimagined sort of the amphitheater over here outside the building. And so that was really the big push for site design. And this is the current, although it's not in the rendering, they didn't re-render the whole thing. They are thinking in this realm for that west end of the building. So I think that, here's an image for the site just to kind of talk through how the building sits. And you can see the 1929 building, which is the original building on the site, and then the 93 addition. This red box here shows you where the gym is currently. And you can see from that aside from plugging the courtyard, or I don't even really call that a courtyard, but the blacktop between the two buildings and parking area, aside from plugging that, the new building doesn't stick out terribly far from the existing gym. In fact, you can see the stairs right there, the bottom of the stairs that go into the gym underneath there. So it's not sort of a massive, huge building on the site that's really obtrusive. It is bigger, but we've tried really hard to break the scale down and really make it a building that fits the site that it's in. I think with that, I will go back to this site plan and then see if there are any big questions or comments or discussion we want to have about that. And then if we have time after that, we can talk through a little bit more of the inside of the building if that's needed or not. But this is, I think, a good point to pause and see if there's any questions.
I'd like to take a moment to just reinforce one of the objectives of the school building committee, and that was to come up with a design that did not take away real estate from our play areas. When Chris had that overview that showed the dates of the buildings on it, if you took note where the White House is, there's on the lower part of the screen, there's one little play structure that became impacted. And other than that, we just did not take away functional space. And I think through the creativity of the team, it's actually been augmented by using the grade changes you discussed to introduce the small amphitheater sitting spaces and gathering spaces that just didn't exist before. And again, that just goes back to, the work of the committee in conjunction with the design team. And I'll turn it back for questions.
Well, I would say I like the site plan a lot, and it's been a long time we've been looking at different variations, but this one I came to learn a while back that splitting the two playgrounds for big kids and little kids is actually an advantage, and it seems to work out this way in this configuration. So that looks very nice, and so I think it's quite an improvement from stuff that I used to see in the back. I wanted to ask a question. It's not for tonight exactly, but on another day, we've been looking at that space behind the emergency services building, and the question is whether or not that territory, which is a drainage field, might yet be used. Maintaining the drainage field might yet be used for recreational spaces, either pickleball or basketball, or even a half-size soccer court. It's not very big, but it's right there, and the facility has a surplus parking more than that the fire department needs, and so it's something to think about. I know it's not part of your project directly, but it may be something that if you have a spillover or some extra need, that might be something that you all would like to think about, and we would maybe take a closer look at that, see if it's a practical thing.
I certainly think, Henry, that type of suggestion and that type of forward thinking is something as a community we should be doing right now. Is if let's say you went in that direction, other members may find some of the designs of this field would change a little bit. And so, and that's, there's a solid year of planning that you have available to us as a community to look at stuff like that.
Oh, that would be good. I think there's at the bottom, literally, there's some technical engineering questions about the channels that support the drainage field, whether or not they would support a play area on top, and what if bouncing a ball and jumping up and down would impact the field or something. But if we could get past the technical question of whether it actually works, then we can look about and see, what it might accommodate and how it might work with the school plan.
Drainage, Henry, by drainage field, is it septic or is it?
No, it's clean water. It's the drain from the sewage treatment plant.
Okay, I get it. Yeah.
So they have a couple drainage areas, one up by the treatment plant and then this one. And I didn't know if you were actually planning to switch to a WIC system either, but this is assuming that the drainage field is still there. Could we create a play surfaces on it, and what would it take to do that? So we might be able to look into that.
So Chris, I have a couple questions. It's hard for me at this size on the screen I can see the topography, not all of it. I know that the building's set high and then they drop down as you described it. Are all of the pathways that go through this from the school and around the various loops, are they all, I'm assuming they'd all be ADA accessible?
Yeah, the slopes would, sorry, feedback. The slopes of them would all meet the requirements of ADA and probably exceed it in the good way, like it's flatter than ADA, but we try not to ever do pathways on a site leading up to a building that aren't accessible.
So at the point, where are the points that you'd come out of the school into each of the recreation areas?
So there's, let me try to draw that real quick. There's a exit there, there's an exit here. You can still use this center exit, but I doubt it's actually going to use
Yeah.
that much. There's one there, one there, one there. And I think those are the most viable per se, but you would, I think if you're coming from lunch, the 3 through 8 grade would come this way. If you're coming from lunch and you're the younger kids, you would come this
That
way.
way.
This is this is a almost flat. You can see the distance between the topography there.
Right, and then what I'm seeing, I guess, is the amphitheater topography coming down.
Right
on
here,
this
yeah.
side. Yeah,
By 14, yep. So those
Okay.
get, the closer together they, the closer together they get, the steeper it is.
Mhm.
And so the pathway is, we spread it out so that it's nice and gentle. And then to create the amphitheater, you bend them back closer to each other so that they create like a little bit of a bowl to sit in and have like lawn amphitheater type stuff.
So the other question I have is just, I'm curious, the spacing of all of it. I think with the play equipment, you've got specific play equipment in each of these areas.
Yep.
You've got swings, and then you've got some climbing. You have for the older kids as well. Have you?
Cheryl, we lost you after older
No,
kids.
I stopped talking. I saw you lost me.
Okay.
Is the spacing between the basketball and that play area, is there something separating them so that the ball I mean, it looks close. It may just be the scale of the drawing. But I guess one of the things that I was looking at is just adequate separation between these different uses so that one isn't spilling into the other.
Take a look. Oh, they have a fence. It looks like they have a little backstop fence on the two ends of the basketball court.
Okay.
And then there's plantings and stuff like that.
And then the other outdoor education area is just beyond the play equipment.
Yep. Another outdoor learning center. This one's probably more of a like flat. The character of that, I think, in my conversations with them has been like maybe like stumps, on the ground, the stone path, and then there might be like a outdoor board, like a something to ride on or something like that out here to create an outdoor learning area.
Yeah. So have you done this?
There's one closer to the building as well over here. Have I done what?
I like the planting there, the use of the landform there. Do all of these outdoor education areas have trees and plantings so there's a little bit of shade when kids are out there if it's really exposed?
Yeah, we try to couple outdoor classrooms or learning environments with shade as much as possible, either from a building or from landscape. Just because it doesn't really work if you set kids in the sun and they can't while they learn. So, of course, early on, it's going to take a couple years to get these mature enough to do what they're meant to do. But the idea is that they'll grow. I don't know the species, but they'll grow up nice and tall to be able to create shade there for the students.
Okay, I see we have two questions. Anna, do you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, and then we'll take you next, Jimmy?
Will, come on.
I was just wondering if Chris, maybe you could speak to, obviously as a parent, I think the spaces look amazing for kids to play on, but I'm interested in the community, like kind of the entrance to the gym. and how that would fit its community space, and what you kind of envision, like the amphitheater, or what do you have a sense of how separated these things might be from the school and more to be available for the community to use as well, in addition to the school?
Like during the
Well, yeah, I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. I mean, obviously on the weekends, I assume, stuff could be used by the community, but is there spaces that could be community spaces as well in a different way? Did you, as you looked at this, do you see any of that? Right now they're all very integrated with the school, but I think when you had talked before, you talked about maybe like there was going to be some separate space so you could open something without opening the whole school up. Is that part of
community space inside the school? Okay.
Well, and outside too. I mean, I guess because we're really focused on the outside. So
yeah, I guess I'm pardon if I'm struggling with the question, but I'm like the outside, I feel like the community can use that anytime they want, as long as the school is, I would think during the school day, the school use would take precedent over any part of the site, or take priority, I'm sorry. But I think that's like a scheduling or program thing that the town would just have to talk through with the district and say, when does the community use this versus not? That's my experience typically with the outdoor spaces. Obviously, if students aren't on break or recess or whatever, and someone wants to come play basketball or walk the side, I don't see that being a huge issue, but you probably won't, without some level of coordination, you won't have someone set up for an outdoor community event like in this amphitheater without talking to the administration, right? So that's that part. But yes, the community space that you can open without getting to the rest of the school is here, and so it's around the area the upper grade levels are.
and how big is the amphitheater? So how many people could that fit?
We haven't programmed it yet, but I think, we could probably fit a couple hundred pretty easy.
Oh, okay.
Non-COVID,
Yeah.
a couple hundred people, but yeah, I think you would be surprised at how small it can be and still fit a good number of people.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Jimmy, did you still have a question? Jimmy Rogers, you had your hand up earlier on. Do you still have a question, or I can move on?
Jim's access might be tough. I believe he's working off his cell phone. So
okay, Jim, if you have a question and you can hear me, feel free to post it in the chat and we can ask it. And then in the meantime, I think I'll go to Jerry Hokanson first, and then Caroline, I see your hand up as well afterwards.
And I have a couple of questions. One in the school garden, which I think is number 6.
Yep, 6 and 9. Yep.
6 and 9. Okay.
There's 2. Yeah, there's one here and one over here.
Okay, so that one looks like it's under the trees, but that's a kind of a minor point. But I was just wondering about the overall size of the gardens. Is it larger than what currently is there on Spring Street, or is it same size, smaller? I don't really know.
The existing ones, let me go back one slide here. So the existing ones are,
Yeah, it's along Spring Street where it says school garden.
yep, it's right here, right? That it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's labeled school garden, obviously, but I'm just saying it's that like little area there. Yeah, so those 2 combined would be larger than that, for sure.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Jimmy. Jerry's in the
I'm sorry.
midst of a little conversation, so just hang tight for a second, okay?
Yeah, no problem. I thought he was done. No problem.
The other
Okay.
questions around the rain garden, is that to collect water coming off of that path, or how has that been designed?
Yeah, it's not water from the path specifically, although water from the path would go there. But what's happening is the entire site kind of comes down to this point, and you can see the design is for a subtle sheet flow of water. You can see the little topography lines here, and they're getting lower as they come into this corner. I think if you go out there on a good rain, you might find that this is a big puddle or very wet, and it takes a while to get to disperse. And so the thinking here is to use what happens naturally, just redirect it a bit so that it captures into a rain garden. So we're trying to get a subtle pitch on this lawn that it would be persuaded to come down and sort of get a low spot in the site where 16 is. And then your puddle or your pond after a big rain event or something is collected over there instead of being in your field where the grass is, and then therefore the grass dies and you have dirt. And so that's the idea behind it. It needs more engineering, obviously, which happens during DD to make sure that that works. But it's for that whole end of the site to kind of pull that way and collect.
Okay, I'll shut up.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you very much. Jim, I guess.
Okay, so just a couple of quick points. I wanted to go back to some of the comments and questions Cheryl had. And I just want to point out for those that don't know, that the PTO has already invested a lot between CPC funds and private donations. And the final layout of playground equipment and the playgrounds and even all of the landscaping plan, we anticipate that the PTO will be deeply involved in that process and make sure that there's adequate space and clearances and one playing field doesn't interfere with another. So those are good questions, but we have anticipated them and intend to work closely with the PTO and the school committee to make sure those concerns are addressed. And then on Anna's question, Anna, it's a great question. A little unfair for Chris because he's a designer. Once he's through designing and we build the project, the actual use falls upon the town and predominantly the school committee, also the select board because it is town property, but it's totally anticipated that this project, not just inside but outside, will be totally accessible to the public in non-school times and in non-school uses. The classrooms we're hoping can be used for summertime education, adult education, with the consent and the agreement of the school committee and the administration. But we really want this to be a public use building, not just limit it to school use only. So I hope that answers those two questions.
Jimmy, thank you.
I see Carolyn, you have your hand up there. Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Oh, sure. And thank you. I think this plan is, really looks wonderful, and it's exciting to be able to have these resources in the town or in the future. Quick question is just, as Jimmy, you were talking about having this accessible to the public at certain times, and I'm wondering where the access points that would be encouraged for the public to enter. And maybe it may be obvious, but I don't go over there now, and I know there are fences around, and I go to the gym for meetings, but where do you anticipate sort of encouraging people to come in and out so that it is it's good for the school and good for the town?
I think, Carolyn, I think that there's two parts to that question, because one is when the school is in session, and I think John is on the line as the principal, and then certainly when school's out of session, and maybe we should get that good and clarified. John, are you available to comment on policy?
Excuse me. Yes, I am. Thank you, Harold.
Thank you, John.
Yep. Yeah. Essentially, when school is in session, the campus is used for, the school purposes, as Jimmy alluded to. Excuse me. After school, certainly, and that's been the case for years. It continues to be the case. It's open. The playgrounds are open to the public, and I anticipate that continuing outside of the school day. In terms of access for inside the building, it depends on the location of the class, the activity that the community would be involved in. If it was the gymnasium or gymnasium area, then I would imagine the entrance that would be used would be gymnasium, but it depends on the area of the building that was going to be used. Really, that's the,
But I'll turn that back to Chris and let Chris walk you through the access points.
Yeah, so I tried to sketch here on the screen some arrow access points that follow the sidewalks that are currently around the site. And then the purple are fences that are either existing or will be maintained part of this project or rebuilt. And you can tell because it's not a tight closed loop for the fencing that it's not intended to be keep people out, but it's more of a barrier to keep students a little bit contained inside of this boundary during the day. And so hopefully those provide ample accessible access points onto the site. The one I think we talked about, which I don't have drawn here, but we talked about adding one down at this end as well. And that would take care of people coming from the far west. And then trying to connect through, I think this is conversations with the landscape architect. We were talking through trying to create some kind of pathway around one of these berms or something, but we haven't gotten that far yet. So.
Carolyn, does that give you?
Yes, no, thank you. I was really, particularly that last point you made about that fence all the way around, just if people wanted to easily get to the walking path or, but no, you've answered. Thank you. There's lots of points, so it looks good.
Thank you.
Rachel, you have your hand up. Do you want to ask a question and unmute?
I do, thank you. I was just wondering if we needed to consider perhaps some additional crosswalks. I was looking at Chris's arrows and I didn't know if the Open Space Committee or the PTO had ever thought about that in terms of safely getting people onto the campus from the sidewalks across the street, since they're not on both sides of the street necessarily. I just was noticing that, and I don't know if that would be something we would need to coordinate with the DPW, the select board, or how that works, but
that's something, Rachel, that in my opening statements about working with the other boards and the Complete Streets program is that we definitely look at all of that. I mean, I would like the sidewalks surrounding the school to be looked at from DPW, Complete Streets, to see about the width of it. I mean, I personally have seen, a parent pushing a stroller and then a toddler, on the street side, going up and down the curb because it's really tight. And is that a discussion we have as part of this whole package, that we lose something on the buffer zone of the playground area, but we gain something for the pedestrian access? I'm not promoting that as the answer, but what I am advocating for is during this design development that we truly look at that. I think mock sidewalks is a perfect example of that need. I also believe just the existing of mock sidewalks is a passive message to slow down in your car. And, those types of things done within the appropriate regulatory process could really enhance it from full community component. So I appreciate that kind of a question.
I'm also wondering a little bit about the bus drop-off zone. Chris, are you thinking that would be like when the buses aren't there, it could be parking for parents or another access point? Or have we given, I know we haven't talked about it very much, but I'm looking at, there's a lot of changes in terms of how that is used now. Like the swings aren't there, the building isn't there, the fence won't be there. So I'm just wondering if maybe we want to, all of us think about that a little bit more.
I think that's, again, it's that kind of input that I think is important, that the plans only improve from that type of input. Because yes, in non-school periods, if that is an acceptable parking location, it just enhances that community access. So,
Well, I'm wondering about like handicap accessibility for easy access onto the grounds as well. I mean, we have it at the lower lot, but with the reconfigurations on the west side, just thinking about it.
yeah.
Okay, Cheryl, you have your hand up. You want to unmute?
Yep. Am I on mute?
You're
Yep,
on.
I think I'm
Yeah.
Okay. So Rachel brings up something that I think is important, and I think Chris just suggested as we start to look at the access to the school, the sidewalks, the streets, some of these entries into the facility need to be matched by crosswalks, and so where we're placing crosswalks, where we look at the width of the sidewalks, I think is important, because as you treat that, you're going to start to direct people into the grounds those crosswalks will help to direct people in. And so I think what would be helpful, I'm not sure, several years ago, John, we put in an application for, what was it, safe streets or safe routes to school. I don't know if you remember that. At the time, we were looking primarily at the street along the parking lot. But I think that in looking at this whole school project, it would be interesting to look at the streets that are coming in, and look at the entire routes that people are coming, and understand what changes might be made there, and then how those changes, if they're necessary, might help to emphasize the entrance areas that we would like to really promote for the school. It's interesting putting one down there at the very end at the tip where the rain garden is. I don't know if that makes sense, but all of a sudden it allows you to come up and cross into the grounds and then walk up to the school building within the grounds rather than being on the sidewalks. And those could be some, with cars coming in and dropping kids off in the morning, being able to have the walking kids enter the school through the grounds and then approaching the building over the grounds, I think might be something worth looking at. So
Already, Carol, that gets used at the end of that. There is a crossing guard there in the morning and a gate, right?
Okay.
So they do in that way already.
Yep. But where we can take them, I also, and this is a little off the play areas, the parking lot, is this the design that's being proposed for the parking lot, or is this the old parking lot?
It's kind of, to be honest, it's the old parking lot, probably restriped, and it's the same size and footprint.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and I remember this from when we were looking at complete streets things before, one of the challenges with this parking lot is that the entire strip there, while it's painted green, so you can see that there's a walking path there. I don't know if there's space, but it sure would be nice if you were able to get double loaded aisles so that the entire thing wasn't open, but you had an entrance at one place and an exit at another.
Oh, okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? So right now, this is just all, you could come in, you could go out here, you could go out here. You've got a double loaded aisle here. It almost seems like you could put another double loaded here and have just 2 points, and then the sidewalk would continue across. It's just something to look at. I think we could do a better job for the walking corridor that comes along here. And I know the kids cross here, so they are coming down through this area and trying to reconfigure that a little bit so that it wasn't completely open to car movement along that edge.
Yeah.
Did that make sense? What I was,
Yep.
okay, yep. All right. Well,
You
I
might
know.
have, you might have 3 driving lanes though, right? Wait,
I
yeah,
was,
because you would have to circle around this side if this was a double loaded in here.
well, you might have one here and one here, and you might lose a space there where you come in and you could
I'm not
actually
seeing
loop.
what you're pointing at, but
Oh, right. I'm sorry. I
But
can send you a little sketch of it.
that's fine. I'll relay the message to the landscape architects and ask them if they can get this a little bit better and safer for the interface to the street.
Yeah, that's
concern.
the point.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm
And
sorry.
Again, Cheryl, it's exactly this, like Rachel's comments, is exactly the feedback, we're looking for. And to go back to, like you say, safe school access program or the complete streets program. How can we incorporate these efforts, in a real cooperative way so that we're spending the town's money the most effectively as possible and not go and revisit one of these things, 1, 3, or 5 years down the line.
Right.
So, and that's why I thought in my opening statements that at some point after fundings, there is a committee made up of multiple representatives who can then, spearhead this kind of an effort.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so is there any more questions on this piece of the meeting, on the site review that Chris has walked us through?
Just one last detail.
Mhm.
On a non-school day, if you are coming along Spring Street, would it be possible to cut through on the east edge of the site, on the east side of the parking lot, say all the way through to William, and then keep walking if you're going to go to the net result of something? This is for local users when it's not school day. Is that a corridor you could do?
Like the red line?
Yeah.
I don't see that being a huge challenge.
Okay, because there's a certain amount of non-school traffic that likes to walk through that area for different reasons, and it would be nice that there's between Look Street and Pine, there's no place to cut through, and that would be helpful for a lot of that neighborhood, I think.
Yeah, I don't see that being a huge hurdle for us to get in.
Okay.
So Chris, this was really wonderful to see. Thank you so much for stepping us through this piece of it. It looks just so amazing compared to what we're experiencing for our students right now, and the idea that this could actually be part of our community and our school surroundings in 2 years, I think would be something to behold for everybody. So I think, just to speak to Harold's point a little bit, hopefully once we have this yes vote and this project is going forward, I think there's lots of people here, lots of stakeholders in this piece of the project that I would imagine there will be some sort of a committee structure formed. There'll be a building committee, and perhaps it might make sense, and we could talk to the powers that be in town to form the outdoor space committee, or maybe there's one that's a subcommittee of the other. I don't know how that would get structured, but I know the PTO, definitely we've got that piece of funding that we've secured from the CPC over the years, and looking forward, when we think about putting this investment into the grounds, how best to maintain them, and perhaps that's a continued use of CPC funds year over year. We also have lots of interest from the Field Fund, who's interested in contributing to the grass and helping keep that going. Our partners with IGI, who help us with the gardens, the growing gardens there. So I think it's a really exciting piece of the project, and I think everybody on the PTO is really looking forward to exploring this further with everybody involved. So with that said, I think we'll move on to the next piece of the meeting, and that's really to Cheryl, do you have one more question on this or a thought?
I was going to adjourn the Open Space and Recreation Committee group. If people want to stay on, they're welcome to, but just to end our meeting. So some may say I have another meeting that I have to get to in a bit, so will stay for a bit. But do we need a motion here? Let's see. One of you guys give us a motion.
Well, I motion we earn.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
by the way, this is just a really, really encouraging project and looks really beautiful. And so you're off to a very good start. Thanks, great. So I think I have to go. That's one.
So Jerry, second. Okay. All in favor, just raise your hand here and I'll see it. Okay, thank you very much. And thanks, Siobhan, and everyone for making time for us here. Appreciate it.
I really appreciate you guys joining us, and we really look forward to working with you on this.
Yeah, and we do too.
Same here.
Okay, thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye, guys. So Chris, do you want to just switch gears then and move to the I know a lot of people here have seen this presentation. We've got a lot of new faces too, just to step through the building schematic design. I understand that piece of it probably might take about 15 minutes just to step through it, just to give everybody kind of a timeline, and then we'll have some Q&A after that also.
Yeah, we've done a good portion of it already. So let's see how fast we can do this. Okay, I'm going to close my thing again so I can't see you guys. So if just stop me if there's any questions. Harold, you can interrupt me if I miss a point or something. So, that being said, we're off to the races here. So we started, this is where we left off, and this is the sort of, Harold calls it the sort of 30,000 foot view of the site with the different components. So you should know the way that it sits on the site. And diving into it a little bit deeper, the lower level, which is the gym, or what we kind of touched on earlier with Anna, is the sort of more public area. And this is where we're calling the gym and things like that. But you can come into this gym from the parking lot at grade and not have any sort of barriers to entry, and have this this performance venue that has a stage, but also a full basketball court here, and about 240 or so in the bleachers. And this should house town meeting fairly comfortably, and you would be able to have the novel idea of the bleachers actually being out for a basketball game or a game on the court of any kind. Which I know now those two don't exist together in the same time. So that's good for spectators and families to come and see any kind of games in the building. And then changing rooms, and then enough toilet facilities here for the large events like town meeting and basketball games and things like that. And then this entire level of the building is designed in a way that can be cordoned off. So we can control access to the rest of the building. There is a stair here, but it's controlled on the second floor to being able to get into any other part of the building. So effectively you have this building within a building, maybe how I'll describe it. And you have this community function on the first floor. So that was a big goal. This floor also has band, music, and some music practice rooms that are the appropriate proportions. That means volume, size, scale, and connection to the stage. You could reuse these rooms. Oftentimes we put some mirrors in them and things so that they can become green rooms for performances and things that might be happening on the stage. And everything's handicap accessible. So that's the lower level. And
I'm going to just hold you there for a sec, Chris, because just point out we do have some emergency storage. So if we're using as an emergency, the gym is an emergency gathering location, we have storage for emergency equipment. We also have storage on either side of the bleachers of the gym You know, something that we've looked at it as we've gone through squeezing these spaces to not squeeze out and not have a place to put things. Now I'll let you go back upstairs.
Okay. So the second floor here, just so that you have your bearings, the gym is here, and gyms are tall spaces, so they usually traverse 2 or 3 stories high. And the same with the stage. And I mentioned the volumetric qualities of band and music, that they're also a little bit taller. So what you see here is basically on this floor, everything to the right side of that line is not usable space on this floor. It's the open air space to the levels below. But the door that takes you down the stairs to get to that level is here. And then that is right off the cafeteria here. And I didn't mention earlier, but there's an elevator on this part of the building that connects down to the gym level and serves floors, the gym, and then floors 1 and 2. And so that helps out with accessibilities on this end of the building. Other parts of this are the cafeteria being sized so that the school can go from, I think you have 5 or 6 lunches now. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a bunch of lunches, and we can go down to 3 lunches with basically 1 floor in lunch at the same time. And it may not necessarily work out that way with the scheduling and administration planning, but it gives you that flexibility, which what we've learned in our long career of planning schools is that a lot of times these moves actually produce more time on learning for students, because you're not having to shift through so many cycles of variation in the sort of lunch schedule. So that's an important plus, and it also gives the community another space in this sort of community section of the building that you can use as like maybe a gathering place, or have classes of some kind that are a little bit larger, but it's all right here in this zone. And then also here is the unified part of the unified arts, which is the shop class. Blanking on what that program is actually called at Tisbury, but it's vocational technology classroom, and it's adjacent to the delivery doors so that it can receive big pieces of material or equipment to come in and do the work there. And then the kitchen and servery are all on that side as well. The other parts you can see, this is kindergarten labeled here, and then we would have 1 and 2, grades 1 and 2 on this floor. And those would, so there's 3 grades per floor essentially, and you have grades kindergarten 1 through 2 on this floor. And then you have on every floor in the exact same spot, stacking nice and perfectly, are special education components. So we have rooms that are dedicated for special ed and support. So maybe like English language learners, or reading supports, or occupational or physical therapy. Those kind of rooms are positioned inside the building, but also around the other program elements. So one of the goals for good school design is to actually integrate these components as much as possible, and not just stick them out in another part of the building, or in your case, in previous years, out in the White House, which is a separate building. You want to integrate them into the plan as much as possible, and distribute them around the building. And so this happens on all 3 floors in exactly the same spot, right in the middle of all the action. And so there's really easy access to pull kids out or push in to classrooms, and then also get the support where it's needed most. So that's a good progress over the existing building as it is today. And then in the middle of the building is really kind of one of the big key heartbeat moves of the building, which is these media commons. And there's one of these on each floor, and it opens the building up kind of U-shaped around the media resources. And so you still have the flexibility to keep the library or media all on one floor, or you could distribute it and make it grade level. We call this distributed media. You can make it grade level appropriate. So if this floor is kindergarten 1 and 2, you could put all the books that are kindergarten 1 and 2 appropriate on this floor, and have it monitored, and the resources are really right at the fingertips of these students and teachers, so that if a teacher needs to go out and have some breakout time or space for media, they can do that instead of a lot of schools are still this way, but in the old days, like the school I went to, the library was like over here, and you only went there on Tuesday every 2 weeks or something like that, right? This approach enables media being right where it needs to be, and kind of ubiquitous is the term, where you need it, when you need it. And so that's kind of one of the big moves that enables a push towards 21st century education right in the middle of the plan.
Hey, Chris, can I jump in for a sec? Give you a
Yeah,
little
go for it.
breather. There's a couple of points I'd like to make in this process. The design effort that Chris's team went through was to minimize disrupting all of the existing structural elements in the 1929 building. So to not go through a reorganization of the first, second, and third floors, taking out all of these existing components. And this was just really an effort to keep the cost as responsible as we could. The median commons space, to me, and I'm speaking as one member of the school building committee right now, I think is the ultimate bonus that came out of this design element. It's too narrow to really stay incorporated as classrooms. It keeps that old H formation and is just not a great effective use of space. I just think this is a real forward-thinking educational component that creates these 3 micro communities inside the school itself. That's, to me, again, a true blessing. The other one was taking away the asphalt area between the gym and the 1991-93 kindergarten wing, and utilizing that real estate much more effectively, meaning the cafeteria, the kitchen, and the industrial arts program. I mean, that space was just underutilized real estate. And when we look at the cost of real estate on Martha's Vineyard, this is maybe one of the most efficient uses. And that also prevented us from having an appendage that went out into our field and play spaces. So I compliment that team on that creative component. You're back up.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, so that's sort of the heartbeat of the building. I think it's really critical to some of the 21st century learning ideas, and sort of, the looking forward idea of education and delivery of education. These kind of spaces become pretty critical to that, and flexibility is an important aspect of it. So, and I would argue, you can see these little desks. I don't know, these desks are shown right now in a COVID-friendly, distanced configuration. And I think I got 18 in each classroom. But should something like we're experiencing now happen again in the future, having spaces that are flexible right in the middle of your building and able to spread kids out or something like that may play into a return to school strategy if you have to experience 2020 ever again in our lives, which I hope that we don't have to. But this is a current thing that we're experiencing, and we tried to lay it out knowing all the lessons that we've learned in 2020, and try to be responsible in that. So this plan also has a space for Project Headway, which is the pre-K Islands pre-K and Tisbury pre-K space. And so that provides a space here in this building for that. And then the nurse and admin spaces are all up here. And one of the the important components of this is safety and secured entry. So during the day, all of these doors of this building will be locked and secured and access controlled through electronics, and people will know exactly what doors open for how long. And one of the ways to control that in the building and create a safer space is to have controlled entry. So you come into the building here, but you only go through one door, and the secretaries and administration can see you and interact with you. And, you know, if it's dropping off a lunch or an instrument or, you know, coming in for a meeting or something like that, they can kind of screen people before they're allowed in the building. So you have two doors here, and those allow for various levels of locking. So you would be able to come in the first door, but this one would be locked and not able to get any further into the building, versus and that's sort of how you do it now. But the trouble with that is that it's the accessible side of it. If someone needs to get into the building, they have to come through this end of the building, and there's no controls there. So this is a definite upgrade and a security enhancer for the building that we do everywhere in all schools nowadays. And unfortunately so, but that's what we have to do. So admin, secured central entry, and then a nice entry from the bus, from Spring Street side, which is buses, and then probably some kindergarten classroom students and parents walking students in. One of the features we have on this plan too in this building is the idea of some dedicated outdoor space and garden kind of reading areas for the kindergartners. I think it's important to have space that the kindergartners can kind of call their own, because, you know, first and second graders can start to take over spaces. And this isn't, you know, a full big scale play area, but it's definitely allows for the nice days for the teachers to open out and extend out into a safe and secure area. That, you know, our thought process here is that this would be some kind of fencing or secured area for the students to be in and have like another extended sort of learning outdoor classroom there. So so that's the first floor. The second floor is a lot of the same stuff, so I can go faster for the next two. Same concepts for the middle of the school and SPED that I talked about earlier. And this floor has 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade on it. And one of the things this floor picks up are some small group rooms that start to become part in play with the other upper grades, especially when you start getting into 5th grade. You have the ability to break out into small group rooms that are right adjacent to these media breakout zones with probably some glassy walls so that you can see what's going on in there. And they also act as small conference rooms or even impromptu offices for para support or teachers that need a place to land for a little bit if they need that kind of space. But so that's this part of the plan. And then up above the addition portion over here, we have, oops, wrong tool. We have art room, foreign language, and a health classroom. And so kind of grouping the unified arts together over in this section of the building and utilizing the upper part above the media of the, music and band rooms there. And then you still see the upper volumes of the stage and gymnasium there. So I will note, and I'll show you a picture of this too, but there's circulation and the walking paths of the building became a big discussion point. And right now in the building, to get, say, to the gym, or to the library, which is on the 2nd floor, everybody kind of comes through this central corridor and it becomes a big bottleneck. And so what we've done is opened up a few different pathways for people to travel in the building. And so that should declutter and decongest all of these pathways and get students moving to the direction they need to go quicker and with less distraction of the rest of the building. And so on this floor, you kind of see that connector here, which is above and open below to the cafeteria. So there's some open space there. And I'll show you an image of how that works or how that looks, at least in concept, in just a second. And then the third floor, again, is very similar to the lower two levels with that center area, this bed. And then this floor has 6, 7, and 8. It also has an assistant principal up here and some guidance spaces. As the kids get older, they need more access to the guidance. And so that's the adjacencies there. And for the 7th and 8th graders, they tend to change classes more and cycle through math, science, social studies, and language arts, if I believe that's correct. But they would cycle through these 4 rooms and be able to keep a good program going there. So that's sort of the lay of the land. There's some, renderings that we've looked at here, and these by all means will be updated and sorted through when we go into design development to pick, the final window shapes or materials on the building and stuff. But just from a massing perspective, you get a sense of what we're looking at here with the 1929 building being really the centerpiece of this whole project. And so we're trying to set that up in that way. And then on the sort of southwest side, you can see this admin block here. Don't worry, we're going to work on this form and shape and try to massage it a little bit so that it works better for the community when we get into design development. And then the Spring Street side from the north looks like this. Down here is that sort of outdoor space I was talking about for the kindergartners. You can see some clear stories for the upper part of the cafeteria, and then the deliveries for the kitchen, and then the gym over here on the left. And then we have the last sort of rendering here, which is the gym entry in the community side of the building coming in from the parking lot. So those are those, and I will share some other images here. So this is an image of the gym. You can see that window wall to the left there, Spring Street off to the left, and maybe what the court looks like with the stage in the background. We usually do 1 full court going the long way and then 2 side courts. So you can have at least 2 teaching stations going at the same time. And so that gives you a lot of flexibility and freedom there. The other image I was going to show you is the middle. This is those media center areas in the middle of the building. So there might be a couple classrooms off to the left here. And then the media area, breakout areas in the middle of the building that are kind of open. During one of the last programming sessions, or I'm sorry, meetings with the building committee, we added in some operable walls in here so that if this area needed to be closed off for quiet or something like that, you would actually be able to close it in and have a more kind of closed space, but it can be opened up and left sort of in the configuration that you see it in right now. And then this is that image of the cafeteria with the connector on the 2nd floor and the sort of daylighting that we expect will happen from, this is real daylight modeled with orientations on the island. So, so that's a nice image of the cafeteria as well, utilizing the historic brick on the building, probably clean it up a little bit, but emphasize that and then create some nice clear stories and windows, keep a lot of daylight in there. So that is what I have. a lot going on. I don't know if I did it in 15 minutes or not, but hopefully it gave you a lot of info.
that was fabulous, Chris. Thank you so much. I think I'm where I hoped we would be at this point in the project. I'm so excited for it. You guys have really knocked it out of the park. There's so many additional features in there. It just, I'm just excited for all the potential. So let's open it up to questions. If anybody has a question, feel free to raise your hand using the little reactions button, or I can scroll through faces, have a look, or post your question in the chat. I don't see anything specific, anybody popping up right now.
Hi, can you hear me, Siobhan?
Is that Maria?
Yeah, Marie Larson. I don't know how to raise my hand on this.
I think that's
Okay,
Marie.
at this stage, you don't have to worry about it. You know, some of us know
Okay.
more Zoom features than others, but I can hear you. So please.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I have a question. I'm looking at that elevator on the inside of what is now the main entrance. It looks like, is that facing the street or is it facing into the school?
It would face into the school.
So who is using that? Who is that for?
I would presume that's for most of the population that's using the building daily, going up and down from that floor to
Okay.
the floor.
Okay, so
Yeah, I think the one at sort of the gym area would really probably be less used, and I guess in my assumptions. Again, it's really programming. A lot of schools will actually have keys for the elevators so that students don't just go in there and push the buttons and go up and down and whatnot.
right.
And that's a whole separate programming issue. But I think the one that's by the current, I'll call it the historic main entry, is the one that serves all of the 3 academic levels. And then one by the gym actually does not go to the 3rd floor.
Okay, so but the nice thing about the one at the gym is that if there is a community program going on that includes the use of the cafeteria, that would serve the public.
Yeah, and that was probably 95% of the reason for putting an elevator over there.
Okay, so do you have to have, are there a total of 2 elevators in the building?
There are, yes, ma'am.
There's only 2. Okay, so you have to have the one by the old the original main entrance. So what's going on with that main entrance? Is that going to be a useful entrance? And where is the main entrance of the building going to be?
Let me share my screen again here. File. So the main entry, yes, it's going to be useful. Be careful how I say this. It is useful and active, meaning that what I've tried to do is get these stairs to work so that you're coming up from the 1st floor, and then this landing is actually at the same level as the top of this stair from the outside.
Uh-huh.
So one could go through that door and be sort of at the landing of this floor and then go up a few steps to the 2nd floor, which is what happens actually today. If you go in that door, you go up a few more steps to get to the 2nd floor. And so that could happen, but it's not an accessible entrance, right? So if you're, so therefore we are not calling it an entrance. The main entry to the building is right there. Would be the secured entry during the daytime hours. Although when school is at arrival and dismissal, all of these doors would probably be functioning and kids would be coming out and coming in all the doors, and you might just have a staff person at each one or something like that. But then, right at the bell time, when the bell rings, these are programmed doors, so they would just shut and be locked, and you wouldn't be able to get in anywhere except for this main entry right here.
Oh, that's good. So what is this? So that elevator opens into the media center area, right?
No, so what we have to do is create, I guess it eventually does, but we have to create a fire separation here to separate the building out. And so that elevator is with the stair inside of a secure space that's like it's a volume that goes up through all 3 floors. And so if you ride the elevator, you would get out and then you would have to go out of that sort of space and get into the floor level.
Okay. I have another question. Over on the left, there's a gray, almost a rectangle in the middle here.
Right here?
Yes. What is that?
It's a courtyard.
Oh, it is. Oh, and for the elementary and preschool.
It could be used that way, but the primary reason for this courtyard is because I have regular use classrooms here on the 1st floor. And I didn't want to plug a building right up close to them because I would lose my daylighting for those windows. And so we created a courtyard here and pushed the admin wing off of it just slightly so that daylight will come through here. So remember, the sun path is like that.
Yeah.
And so the sun would get into these windows. And we've done some solar studies on that to make sure it works. But that would enable those classrooms to have natural daylight, which is a goal for any classroom in this building to have natural daylight.
So do all the classrooms have natural daylight?
All of the classrooms have natural daylight.
Okay. Where are the kindergarten? Are those windows on the side, on the William Street side? Are there windows over there?
This is Spring Street up here.
Excuse me, Spring Street.
Yeah. So yes, those are windows. You have some fairly large windows and then some doors with windows. And then this classroom would actually have a few more windows that are existing today. And then we have to fill in a couple of windows on this one only just so that we can get this building in. But these windows are big enough to have enough daylighting in and of themselves. So.
Okay. So will the lower grades have to walk to the other end of the building to get to the cafeteria? Will they be using the main cafeteria?
The lower grades are right here and the cafeteria is right in the middle, right?
Okay.
So kindergarten is
So
literally.
they're right next to it. Okay, fine. Okay.
And that's probably 50 feet maybe.
Okay. All right, that's a good plan.
Thank you, Marie.
That's all I have for now. Yeah,
Marie, to speak to one of your questions about the entrance, the center entrance, a piece of that too is, essentially it can be with the stairs there, a central emergency exit. So, you've got exits then at both ends of the original H school and right down in the middle of the school. How John from a program standpoint, develops his evacuation routes, we'll leave that up to him and those people. But, that is a benefit of keeping that central or redesigning that central area.
Okay, I forgot, I have one other question. I listened in on the planning board meeting that you had. And I am still I'm still uncomfortable about that walkway over the cafeteria. That just strikes me, I'm kind of a practical person. That strikes me as a perfect place to throw spitballs or my leftover sandwich or how do you justify that to parents who might look at that and say, gee, if I was a 10-year-old, I'd be up there, throwing ice cubes at my friends.
It's a wonderful question. It's come up numerous times. In many ways, it's embraced as a teaching opportunity of what good social behavior is. Will spitballs go off of that? I'm sure they will. It's no different from a one-sided balcony. If you went into the existing stairwells right now and you're at each landing, you've got a balcony railing that allows a child to kind of engage in the same activity. In essence, in this application, they're much more visible to a staff member than they are in that stairwell. it's definitely a conversation piece that's come up. The wonderful component of it is how it manages the traffic flow. I know Chris just demonstrated how the children get into the cafeteria on the lower level, and that cut through the cafeteria during non-use times allows a better flow. That bridge on the next level up affords that increased flow, which was a common theme from staff, that everyone moving down the middle of the existing school is basically like playing an old-fashioned ping pong game, not ping, forget it. Just they bump into each other.
Right. So
Pinball wizard, that's where I was trying to go, but life in the 60s came back and haunted my memory. So
okay, I still don't like that walkway. I'm going to make myself very clear. I do not like that walkway, that being so open. You guys ought to think again about that. I think that's asking for trouble. As a parent, and I've been around for a long time, I think that's much too much to ask kids not to lean over that. You could put plexiglass up to the ceiling or something to keep them from falling over, pushing each other, throwing things. That's just it's just, to me, that's the one thing that really bothers me about the entire design is the liability.
that will definitely be, these type of comments are totally taken into consideration, and that's how we got to the plan that's here. There's a lot of.
I think it's a nice idea. I just think it's very a terrible temptation. I don't know how you're not going to have trouble with it right away. So I'll leave it there. But I don't just like the idea of a walkway. I think it's really cool.
So in the chat, I don't know if you got that, Sean, someone has mentioned there's a similar feature in the Edgartown school. And it functions safely and well. Yep. So thank you, Liz.
Really well-behaved kids in Edgartown. My 2 cents.
No, like I said, it's important, Marie. All of these are taken into consideration and weighed up. I mean, that is truly how this plan has evolved.
Yeah. Maybe you could think about putting some kind of nice grill work up to the ceiling. I don't know, just to keep the safety. It just doesn't seem safe, but go ahead.
Thank you, Marie.
Yeah.
I hear you, Marie. I mean, and I appreciate your thinking that all through again. And I think, yeah, I think it can be a little subjective too. Some people just feel those things more than others. And I would imagine when the staff was looking at this too, it would be a point for them to consider how they would manage that space on their day-to-day, and the kids flowing through it. And if they feel that's something that they can handle as well, I'd be interested to hear that.
Yeah. Okay.
Reed, you have your hand up there as well. Reed.
Oh, did you say my name? Sorry. Yeah, Marie, that was this bridge has been a sticking point for me as well. And so I've come around because I think it serves a really good purpose. And also, I think, I was thinking along the same lines as you, where there's a bridge, so something's going to happen. But that situation, a stairwell or a balcony, or I wonder, Chris, how many schools you have designed that have an element like this, where there's something open to another space below. And, I think it's interesting that it is something that a few people have brought up, is this concern of that bridge or that balcony. And it really isn't that different of an element from an open railing or stairs or something. But I guess I'm just wondering how this has been received in past schools that you've done.
Yeah, it's worked very well. I mean, the thing is that I think that there's always an example student. Name the subject, there's going to be an example student who does something, and I think you can't necessarily design out that scenario. But my experience, and I've being a designer, we carry that liability, and we try to make sure we don't open schools up for undue liability as much as we possibly can. And we scrub it to find those things. But I am time and again, I think, blown away by the capacity and responsibility that students have when they're given new buildings, and they act more mature than what we give them credit for. And so that's my experience, just having designed all these buildings and having second floors that are open to lower floors and stuff. And there will be the outliers. There will be the ones who don't follow rules or do something stupid like that. But in my experience, these kids all the way through kindergarten through high school have a lot of resiliency to be responsible people in their community. And that's just my experience. So.
And just to follow up, Marie, the railings will be high enough that these kids are not going to be able to fall over them or throw each other over them. And also, I think that it can be seen as a positive aspect where there can be physics experiments and all sorts of, gravity and, fun things. I think it can be an element that the teachers can use in that sense. And I do, Chris, I really appreciate that idea of not selling our kids short and really giving them the opportunity to rise to the occasion. I've used my own son as that exemplary student who's going to throw a sandwich at his buddy, and maybe he's not. Maybe he's not going to be that kid. And if he does, he's going to learn a good lesson from Mr. Custer. Mr. Custer's really good at teaching kids lessons. So, in a very kind way. So I have, Marie, I had the same concerns, and I've really come to embrace the bridge. I think what it offers the floor plan and offers the school far outweighs the rogue sandwich on someone's head.
John, you had your hand up there. Do you want to unmute and give us the educator's point of view on this walkway?
Yeah, thank you for letting me jump in. I know there's other folks with hands up. I just wanted to very quickly sort of reiterate, Chris said it very well. And I would just add that ours is a K-8 school, and don't take my word for it. There have been volumes of studies written about K-8 schools and the benefits for all kids, K through 8, in particular, when it comes to social opportunities and the modeling for older kids. They up their game. They rise to the occasion when there are younger kids in the building, and K-8 schools offer some really wonderful benefits. And I love working in a K-8 school because of that, but this is one such example, and Chris said it well, but I just wanted to remind folks that in a K-8 school, I have tremendous confidence that kids will rise to the occasion, and certainly there's outliers, but that's okay. So.
That's great. Rachel, I see you have your hand up there. Would you like to unmute and ask a question or respond to that?
Well, I actually have a use question for John and some of the staff, and maybe for Chris too. So I noticed, like, with the stair or the hallway over the cafeteria, there are doors on either side of that. And with the stairwell with the elevator, there are doors. Do you think those doors are going to be open during the day when kids are in school, or will they be closed? I have some concerns having an elevator behind heavy doors, because I think if you're in a wheelchair, that could be hard. Or if I'm a teacher with, my arms full of books or, whatever, that could be difficult. So I'm just wondering. And then with the hallway, if you've got kids, if the doors are closed and they're opening and shut, that could be kind of loud and disruptive for the cafeteria, or maybe not. I don't know. I'm just wondering how you think that's going to operate during the day.
I would imagine the doors would be open most of the time.
And what about the ones to the stairwell with the elevator?
Same.
And what we haven't talked about it, but I'm assuming we will have a feature where they'll have an automatic button, so those doors will open automatically to make the elevator accessible.
It would be required.
Like they do going into the steamship authority or whatever.
Yeah. That's typically required. Anywhere that you have accessibilities. If you have There's nuances to that, Rachel, that I can walk you through at some point, but I think, yes, we'll take all of those, like the push force of doors for accessibilities. The goal is to make it universally accessible. So,
Right.
you know, you don't have to use like even the luxury of having 5 fingers or, you know, a fist or something to push with. We go through that with our hardware consultants and make sure all the doors are, you know, not too heavy to push, or if they need a push button on them to operate, that they do that. They follow all those codes. And they also have soft close and dampers on the side so that when it closes, it's not like a giant slam and disrupt everybody kind of moment. So, and like John said, a lot of these doors that you're talking about I would imagine being on what's called hold opens, and they're tied to the lockdown system, and they're also tied to the fire alarm, so that if one of those events triggers, it releases and the doors will shut, and then it enables. I haven't even talked at all to anybody about the security features. Those are normally a meeting that you have in a little bit more of a private session, but the security features of lockdown and lock in, the Alice training, all of that kind of stuff that goes into how these doors work, and you compartmentalize the building so that you can contain different parts of it from, you know, threats or active shooters, and allow the rest of the building to get out or be safe without advancing too quickly into it. So there's all of that is structured into here already, and we're trying to continue that thinking. So
Most of the time, people won't even know their doors there during the school day, right? It'll just be like
exactly, yeah,
open
exactly.
stairwells.
Yep.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions from anybody who's attending the meeting this evening? We've had lots of people coming and going, so this has really been a great attendance. I appreciate everyone's time this evening. Just of note, we have recorded this meeting. We're going to post it on the Tisbury School Project website. We'll get it up on our PTO website, and we'll encourage everybody to distribute it as much as we can to get this information out into our greater community. Harold, do you have anything, or Chris, anything else to add at this point?
I would just say in the coming months, we will be holding Zoom coffee hours so you can spread that word to educate voters in a very similar way to, you know, what the project is, and be available to entertain any questions that come along. There's a lot of people that need to learn about it before they can make an informed decision, and we want to make ourselves available to convey that information. So other than that, thank you very much as well for hosting us.
And if I could add, Harold, that we certainly want to get out to the public a lot more over the coming months in advance of the vote, to do more of these, to inform as many people as possible. So if there's a particular topic or a space in the building that you need more information about, please send us an email. The school building committee has an email that's on the project website, and Harold checks it regularly, as do I. Or just reach out to any one of us and let us know if there's something specific that you'd like to see in a future presentation for us to go into a little bit more detail, or provide more information regarding a specific feature of the building or the site.
And I
Sorry,
guess
Chris, go ahead.
that if you have a particular group that would like a abbreviated presentation to that group, same thing. You know, let us know, and we'll make ourselves available to do so.
Christina and Harold, just while I have you on the phone, in terms of printed literature, when do you think you'll be kind of finalizing something that will be kind of tangible for somebody to kind of digest, other than the website that might be distributed in the coming weeks?
Our communications group will be meeting within the next week, so I can't give you a definitive answer, but we're working on a pretty extensive FAQ page, the tax implication information, you know, comparative numbers, because it's come up to the previous proposal for a new school. So a whole host of those. It might be multiple sheets, but we're trying to respond to the many questions that have come in, which is good. We welcome the questions, the hard questions as much as the easy questions, because if you're thinking of it, someone else most likely is too. And, you know, without being at the coffee shop or the lumberyard, you know, or on Main Street, we're not having those kind of casual one-on-one conversations. But hopefully, as things move forward with COVID and the temperature gets warmer, we can go public. There are some tentative plans to do that, but you know, we need to hold off a little bit and be sure that but the action the governor is taking will truly support that in a safe way.
Yeah, and I think you know, you've kind of got a captive, well, in the parents typically, you know, we've been huge supporters of the improvements at the building, and we look forward for the coming vote. You know, it's 8 to 10 weeks away. I think in having something that we can use as a tool to help spread that message and share that kind of building language, the vernacular, kind of highlight the positive things about the project. We'll be generating our own, but I know that if you guys are just doing a lot of the groundwork on answering some of those tough questions with regards to finance, logistics, all those kinds of things. So, I mean, I think it would be important if we can get something from you guys as soon as we could. That would be great.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Siobhan.
Siobhan, I was gonna I had a lot of airtime, but I just wanted to make sure it was very clear that if my enthusiasm hasn't come through, that I'm really excited about these plans. And a lot of times, I'm not just saying that because I drew them, but a lot of times with renovations, you end up with parts of a design that you kind of like, well, I wish we could have done something more, but that's the nature of a renovation. You're stuck with whatever, right? These
great.
lack nothing educationally. And I think that excites me a lot to know that we're going to go forward, or that we're putting forth a renovation project that has a complete gamut of 21st century education embedded in it.
Yeah.
And we're not losing anything that perspective. And so I just wanted to make sure that's very clear from the professional's perspective. That's, you know, consider that my opinion, but I'm just saying that makes me really excited that we've achieved an addition renovation and not had to wish that we got something else educationally in.
I mean, I think from my point of view, there'll be plenty of conversations after this with you guys as well. And it really does seem to have brought us to a place where we can really be excited about the project. And I feel like, just for myself personally, I'm only about to have the bandwidth to get excited about it. We, as parents, honestly, it's been a challenging year.
Right.
You know, all of us are kind of feeling somewhat of a bit of relief. There's kind of light at the end of the tunnel. And I can honestly say I'm just so incredibly excited about this right now. And I feel like a lot of us feel the same way, and we're ready to put some energy into it. And I think the timing couldn't be better, honestly. Yeah. So yeah, thanks so much. We'll keep pushing you guys to answer our questions, and I know you guys will get them to us. And yeah, and just huge thanks to everything that you guys have done so far.
And
So,
I'm sorry, Siobhan, I might just add too, because I know the focus of this presentation has mostly been on the educational spaces and the layout of the building, but I wanted to ensure for the folks on the call that might be interested that the existing pieces of the building that we're keeping are going to be completely overhauled to the point where they're going to have lots of insulation and lots of energy efficiency. The heat and the cooling in the building is going to be better. The lighting in the building is going to be better. The air quality in the building is going to be better. And we didn't get into a lot of that technical stuff today, but that all is part and parcel to a staff member's or a student's experience in the building as well. So those have all been taken into consideration as well. This is a massive renovation of the existing building. This is not just, you know, putting paint on walls. Chris has done an amazing job with revitalizing these original structures.
We will see the skeleton of the 1929 building, so we'll be looking deep into those walls. And to that point, the envelope is designed to be, you know, at or near net zero. The solar component will be decided upon in during construction. There's so much groundwork for us to do, or background work for us to do as to the different ways that you can get solar on a building. Not the physical part of it, but what is the right funding formula that suits the town of Tisbury? So that's on the table. And I appreciate Christina for opening the door to say that, because we're one of the most environmentally conscious communities, I think, in the state. And to not make that point would be shorting everyone tonight, so. And if we're done, should I go to an adjournment of the school
Yeah, you
building
can.
committee?
I think we'll be regrouping and getting questions to you guys as a result of the presentation, and just thanks again for everything.
You're welcome. So I'm gonna go and be a formal chair for a few minutes here.
Yeah.
The chair of the Tisbury School Building Committee would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Custer.
Do I have a second?
Second, Milne.
Any further discussion? Okay. Jim, is Jim have his hand up, or?
No, my hand's not up. Does it
Okay,
look like it's up?
no, your little box got yellow, so I thought you might have something, Jim. That's okay. I will.
No,
I'll go to roll
I
call.
unmuted my phone. Okay.
Okay. John Custer,
Custer, aye.
Sean DeBencourt,
Betancourt, aye.
Peter Gerhardt,
Gerhard, aye.
Rita Jeffers,
Jeffers, aye.
Reed Milne,
Milne, aye.
Rachel Orr,
Or aye.
Jim Rogers,
Rogers, aye.
and I'll just note for the record, Mike had to leave earlier and put it up in the chat. Harold Chapdelaine, aye. We stand adjourned at 8:24 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, Siobhan, I've stopped my recording, so you can.